morning to you, and thank you so much for joining us. This is Good Morning Africa show. As usual, we're coming to you from Kenya's capital here in Nairobi. It is Monday, the 21st of March, 2022. I trust that you had a wonderful weekend, and being a Monday, we do have so much to talk about. As we know, Kenya, we are in the campaigns as we gear towards our elections in August later on this year, and a lot has been happening over the weekend, and so we shall bring you up to date with that. My name is Miriam Ogutu. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuned in today. So without wasting so much of your time, I'll just get into it, and we start by looking at the headlines this morning. On the Daily Nation, the main headline, crowds for hire, democracy on sale. A Daily Nation, an NTV investigation reveals shocking details of the normalization of hirelings on the campaign trail and how politicians will do anything to create false impressions of popularity, including using photo and video editing software to distort rally numbers. The story is on page 12 and 13. I'll guard your wealth, Ruto assures Uhuru. We've been through many challenges together, including facing the International Criminal Court cases at The Hague. And of course, Deputy President William Ruto yesterday regretted that President Kenyatta had wrongly judged him as someone who would not protect his interest after retirement. The story is on page 5. How KCSE tests leaked despite Magoha's repeated assurances. The story is on the back page. And sibling rivalry threatens to tear apart alliances as Miola Umoja flag bearer Raila Odinga and Kenya Kwanza leader William Ruto face an uphill battle to contain the sibling rivalry in their teams. The city contest is a big headache. You'll find that on page 4. On the Star newspaper, why Uhuru is Ruto's election headache. That is the main headline. And then just up there, Infotrack survey, Mvita, Member of Parliament Nasir leads Shabal and Omar in Mombasa governor race. That is on page 6. Over 10 million Kenyans risk going blind in the next 1 decade, state agency warns. Builders abandon projects over market disruption, rising cost of material. That is on page 11. And right. And the Standard newspaper, the main headline, Ruto numbers, myths versus reality. And African show promises love drama, soft life. That is on page 3. If you've watched it on Netflix, Kenyans especially have a lot to say about that. Magoha bans phones in exam centers. That is on page 14. CBK eyes more bonds in new Akiba. That is on page 27. And Chelsea players in never say die mood. You find that on page 48. Athletics stars run for politics. You'll find that on page 38 and 39. And before we get into our conversation, let me look at some other papers we do have from across the continent. The Guardian newspaper from Nigeria. Complete dispensary health centers by April. That is the main headline. And Samia's first-year government talks of energy sector milestones. That's what we have. And then daily news from Tanzania. Government improve cargo handling. I think that was the Guardian from Tanzania. I didn't know Tanzania also had the Guardian, because usually I read the one from Nigeria. And so I apologize for that. The Daily News, also from Tanzania, government improve cargo handling. Samia to inaugurate 18 billion, I guess, Tanzania shillings water project. And then the Daily Monitor from Uganda, Olanya speaker unites nation in death. You know that Uganda's speaker died in Seattle in the United States. You know, I don't know the details surrounding his death, but perhaps we shall look at it as we continue on the show or in the subsequent show during the Diaspora Dispatches show. And the speaker, Jacob Olunya, that is also a special tribute on the New Vision, the front page. The Daily News from Zimbabwe, schools corona blitz starts today. A news day also from Zimbabwe, I am better than you, Chamisa tells President Mnangagwa. So that is what we have from Kenya and also from a few newspapers across the continent. I'm joined right now by Daniel Wesonga, our correspondent and in-house analyst from Nairobi. Wesonga, very good morning to you.
Yes, very good morning to you, Miriam. Good morning to our viewers here in Nairobi, Kenya, Africa, and the rest of the globe who are joining us this morning. It is indeed my pleasure to be on the conversation this particular morning, Miriam.
All right, so let's just get into it. And we start with this Standard newspaper, the main headline: Ruto's numbers, myths versus reality. Rift Valley, Deputy President's perceived political bedrock is cosmopolitan, with various communities showing allegiance to different national leaders. However, Azimio and Kenya Kwanza have not given the region adequate attention. The story is on page 6 and 7 on the Standard newspaper. And Kenya's Rift Valley region is a rich political cocktail. The cosmos of the entire Kenyan nation has ties that would ordinarily blind clusters of populations, while also distinguishing each from the rest, and with it, their political choices beyond the usual ethnic considerations. Political ethnic affiliations, however, continue to rule the way people vote, with the leanings of key regional leaders pointing out the way forward. The August 9th presidential election does not promise to be any different. A uniform voting pattern would seem to be out of the question, making it a pipe dream to imagine that any other one issue or individual could lock up the Rift Valley. All communities in the country are domiciled in the region either as permanent residents or temporary migrant wage workers. They bring with them political inclinations by diverse communities from elsewhere in the country. Frontrunners Dr. William Ruto and Mr. Raila Odinga must come to terms with this reality in their stance and ban storms across the country. How they are received in largely homogeneous communities elsewhere in the country will shape their reception among migrant populations in the Rift Valley. Besides, the valley also has its own indigenous who will walk the path blazed by their key leaders. So this story is very interesting, and I think it starts by saying that the Rift Valley is maybe perhaps a place where we've seen, even as the leaders continue to, politicians continue to, campaign, it has not been given the attention that it deserves in terms of the cosmopolitan nature it has with its voters there. And so we don't see Ruto going so much in Rift Valley. I think he's comfortable at knowing that maybe, majority of those votes belongs to him. And also, Azimio la Umoja has not been going to the Rift Valley as much, to campaign. So I don't know, are they sleeping on the job? And if they don't do that, are they likely to lose, some of these votes if they don't take advantage of? Let's start with the side of William Ruto and what he stands to lose.
Exactly, Miriam. And if you look at the Rift Valley's composition, remember we have Turkana County, which is largely ODM. We have Samburu County, which has been cascading towards Jubilee, President Uhuru Kenyatta's side. We do have West Pokot, which has been cascading towards the Kenya Union Party, the coup for the Governor Lonyangapuo and KANU Party. And we also have Narok and Kajiado counties. These counties are counties which have been, in one way or another, been swaying towards President Uhuru Kenyatta and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. So when you are counting the maybe counties that are in Rift Valley, you start with those ones. And you realize that these counties alone will give Raila Odinga close to maybe 1 million votes out of the 2-point-something million votes in the Rift Valley. Now, go to a county like Eldoret. Eldoret is a cosmopolitan county where even in the previous elections, Raila Odinga was able to garner more than 30% of the vote. Go to a county like Kericho and Bomet. These are also the counties that Raila Odinga was able to garner more than 30% of the vote. So all those, let's say he gets 30% in Bomet, 30% in Kericho, 30% in Eldoret, in Uasin Gishu rather, and he goes ahead to take maybe Narok, Kajiado, Samburu, West Pokot, and Turkana, then William Ruto will be done and dusted. That will mean Raila Odinga will have 50% of the Rift Valley, and William Ruto will also have 50% of the Rift Valley. And remember the matrix as it is, Raila Odinga only needs maybe 6% of the central part of the country for him to be able to clinch the presidency. Because as much as I'm concerned, if those people who voted for Raila Odinga in 2017 will again vote for him in 2022, which is more likely, and of course, the other half of Jubilee, which President Uhuru Kenyatta has come with to maybe the Azimio side, also cast their votes in favor of Raila Odinga, then that will be a done deal, Miriam. And that is why I believe if all metrics were to play the right way, then Raila Odinga is going to have 62 and above in terms of the total votes cast. And therefore, I believe this is an eye-opener, and I believe the Azimio team will heed to this call and know that not everyone in the Rift Valley actually supports the Kenya Kwanza coalition. I was in the Rift Valley the past week, and I was able to traverse the 3 counties of Rift Valley, that is Nandi, Uasin Gishu, and also some parts of Nakuru. And I can tell you for a fact, Miriam, not everyone, even in the Kalenjin Rift, not everyone is supporting the Kenya Kwanza coalition. We have very, very sober guys who are advocating for Azimio la Umoja, and it's a sizable number actually to say so. So to me, I believe these are an eye-opener to the campaign secretariat of Azimio la Umoja to go in there and be able to exploit these unexploited niche and be able to take some sizable number of votes from this particular region. I believe from where I sit, Miriam, if all was to go well as per the plan, then Rift Valley will actually be the swing vote, because I believe Raila Odinga can be able to garner 50% of the vote, owing to the statistics that I've given there in the counties that are actually aligning towards Azimio la Umoja, that is Turkana, West Pokot, Samburu, Kajiado, and Narok. And now left with the Kalenjin Rift, where Raila Odinga has been garnering over 30%, that will be a done deal, Miriam. I submit.
Okay, thank you so much. And of course, the Standard newspaper has given a breakdown of us the voting patterns and the results from, the other elections in 2017. We do know that Rift Valley has about, 14 counties. And, like Ruto has been intensifying his campaigns, especially in Mount Kenya region, I think because of the threat of Raila gaining ground, through his recent campaigns. But he seems to be forgetting that there are also some people he have to convince in the Rift Valley itself, knowing that, as you mentioned there earlier, a place like, Eldoret town, a place like Nakuru, those are cosmopolitan towns where we have people, and Kericho and others from across, the divide, from across Kenya who are there, and maybe they still need some convincing as to whether they want to vote for Ruto or not. So why do you think Ruto has not been, increasing his campaigns in these areas to make sure that he's able to convince the voters there as much as he's been doing in the Mount Kenya region?
Thank you, Miriam. And maybe perhaps it might be sheer ignorance, or maybe it is the fact that he's still an amateur in running for presidency. But what I know is that William Ruto has concentrated more of his campaign in Mount Kenya region, which has personally, in my maybe opinion, become a battleground county. Because in Mount Kenya, the last time we had an election between UDA, which pitted a contest between UDA and Jubilee Party, the results were 50-50. And even in the winning of the seats, Jubilee had victory in some MCA positions and beating UDA in other regions. So to me, that makes it a 50-50 contest in Mount Kenya region already. And if William Ruto thinks that everyone in Mount Kenya, in Rift Valley, is going to cast their vote in his favor, then he might be in for a very, very rude shock. Remember, in Rift Valley, in counties like Eldoret, Uasin Gishu rather, we have even ODM MCAs. In counties like Nakuru, we have ODM MPs. We have had ODM MPs in the previous elections. And therefore, that tells you that a sizable number of those people are going to vote on the other side. And therefore, if he does not put much emphasis on his and cement his backyard, then it's going to be his Waterloo. Apart from the central part of the Kenya maybe eluding through his fingers, we're going to also have a double tragedy where his own backyard is going to slide through his fingers. And that might give him, at the end of the day, a vote count of less than 5 million votes if he is not very careful. We've seen people like Raila Odinga, who is an experienced politician, someone who has run for president for 4 times, always going back to Kisumu, camping there, campaigning in Homa Bay, in Migori, and any other parts of Nyanza County, regardless of the fact that these regions actually give him 90% of their votes. But nonetheless, still, Miriam, you know that one single vote could actually be the difference of the 50+1, which is the constitutional threshold that is needed for someone to be declared as a validly elected president in the forthcoming elections. So, to me, if I were William Ruto, I wouldn't want to play a game of chances with my backyard. I'll really come in there and make sure that I get at least a minimum of 87% per each county, but the target should be 90 and above per each county in Rift Valley. But as it is, Miriam, he'll be very, very much surprised. The way people are going to vote, even for individual seats from governor all the way to MCA, he might get a surprise of his life, because these are an increasingly cosmopolitan areas. Even Kericho, even Bomet, even Nakuru, even Uasin Gishu. These are areas which they perceive they can get 90% of the vote, but that's not the reality on the ground. The reality on the ground, the maximum they can get is actually 64 or maybe 50 something thereabout in counties like Nakuru, or maybe in counties like Baringo and other counties in the Rift Valley. So Miriam, I think I agree with you that this could actually be the misdoing of William Ruto, imagining that this is an area which is right under maybe into his basket under lock and key. But when votes will start getting counted, that is when he'll realize that actually you need to campaign even in your home yard, even in your own sub-county, for you to be able to garner those votes that you imagine that you already have. I've seen a politician in my home county who actually was almost losing in his own village simply because he presumed that these were his automatic votes, not knowing that the opponent was coming at night and combing the entire village, giving out goodies and selling his agenda. So the day of the election, the day when the votes will be counted, if William Ruto does not take care about his backyard, then he will claim that he has been rigged, whereas the reality is he did not do his homework quite well, Miriam. And I think it is out of negligence or maybe being overconfident. Remember, this is a man who has been running a solo campaign when others were busy working and supporting the peace process of this country. And now that the politics have begun, I believe now it will be now a game of numbers. And if he does not get away the mentality that he's always ahead of the rest, then he might be in for a road show. Because even the opinion polls have started indicating that Raila Odinga is slowly but surely overtaking him.
And also, if, I don't know if you can recall the video by Uasin Gishu Governor Mandago, who was, telling the residents there, it was a public forum, that, you should be able to vote for anybody. It does not mean that you have to vote for your own from here. You have to vote for a leader who you think will represent your interest well. You remember, if you can recall that video. So when you look at such sentiments coming from there, isn't perhaps time that Ruto really maybe thought about, there's a possibility that his backyard could be open to voting for other people and not necessarily him.
Absolutely, Miriam. And the fact that the deputy president is still incumbent and in office, there's that fear and small influence that comes with it. People cannot just come out maybe openly to criticize him, maybe from his backyard. But wait until he resigns as the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya and he becomes a common citizen, an aspirant who is seeking for votes. Then you'll be able to know the voice of the silent majority in the Rift. Okay. Many of them do not support his bid, but simply because there is power and, of course, the influence that comes with the office of the deputy president, a majority might not be able to speak out quite maybe boldly about the contest, able to express their opinion.
They'll speak through their voting. All right, speaking of numbers, because I want us to look at a story that was there yesterday on the Sunday Nation, and during the afternoon show we did not get a chance to take a look at it, but I said we'll look at it this morning. So I want us to tie that with the topic that we're looking at right now, even as perhaps Ruto faces some challenges there from the Rift Valley. And they are questioning his numbers. Deputy President has for numerous occasions in the past said, he's confident about the numbers that he has. Of course, that has been proved time and time again to be maybe not true in Parliament, through voting and things like that. And so these numbers, are they myth or not? So as we see, he still needs to fight for some votes in Rift Valley, but also in Western Kenya and some parts, and also in Mount Kenya, there seems to be some defections looming. So this might affect Deputy President Ruto's numbers. So according to a story on the Sunday Nation, I'll read just a bit of that on page 6. A secret pact in Kenya Kwanza alliance meant to hand Amani National Congress, ANC, and Ford Kenya exclusive rights to field candidates in Western Kenya has triggered panic and exodus of Deputy President William Ruto's traditional allies. The zoning formula hands Vihiga, Kakamega, Bungoma, Busia, and Trans Nzoia counties to the ANC and Ford Kenya, and bars the United Democratic Alliance, the principal member of the coalition, from fronting candidates for seats other than the presidency. Dr. Ruto is the presumptive presidential candidate of the coalition. The latest to quit is Sirisia Member of Parliament John Waluke. His Kimilili counterpart, Didmas Baraza, is tipped to lead a host of aspirants in an exodus that could cost the TP the support he has enjoyed in Bungoma and Trans Nzoia counties. The entry of ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi and Ford Kenya's Moses Wetangula has displaced many vocal politicians who have served as Dr. Ruto's point men in Western Kenya, such as Mumias East Member of Parliament Benjamin Washiali and former Kakamega Senator Boni Alwale. Aspirants who had planned to run on Dr. Ruto's UDA ticket have vowed to seek alternatives, even as the DP is reportedly pleading with them not to quit and instead wait for the plum state government in the event of victory in August. So I think that is the statement. I think underlined it yesterday. So in the event, so he's telling them don't quit. So wait until when I become president, and then you will be given this position, either a minister or something. But for them to be quitting, maybe they don't have the confidence that the deputy president might not win. I don't know. But DP seems to be facing a myriad of problems in Western Kenya. What is really happening here?
Miriam, let me anchor this on historical facts. And when you look at MP John Waluke, since the time immemorial, he has never been on the same political side with Senator Moses Wetangula. And this goes way back in the day when they were battling out for Sirisia parliamentary seat back in post-NAC government. And you remember in 2007 when Waluke was running on an ODM ticket, Moses Wetangula was on the other side on PNU, and his Ford Kenya's party was supporting the re-election of President Mike Kibaki. Fast forward in 2013, when Waluke was in parliament on an ODM ticket, and Wetangula came on board to support Raila Odinga, it is when actually Waluke moved on the opposite side and went with the Jubilee Party. And in 2017, that was a similar case. They were actually on the opposite sides. And now in 2022, again, Moses Wetangula has come to Kenya Kwanza with his party, Ford Kenya. You see Waluke has jumped against him. He's in Jubilee and in Azimio la Umoja brigade. So that is the same thing with also Honorable Didmas Baraza. I believe that they know if Ford Kenya will be fielding candidates in the vast Western region, then it might deny them chances of actually maybe making it back to parliament, because they were riding on the wave that these guys are on the other side and we are on this other side. Our candidate is William Ruto and their candidate is Raila Odinga, but now they can no longer maybe explore that that particular niche, because Fort Kenya will also be saying, but we are also supporting William Ruto. So they will be able to share, however small number of votes that would have maybe been a point of advantage for Didmas and other MPs that were hoping to go all the way to the ballot, with UDA. So that is the matrix that is at play, Miriam. And I think if they are serious enough, they'll actually become to Jubilee, so that under Azimio la Umoja, they can either go under DAP Kenya, the sole party running in Bungoma and Trans Nzoia, or maybe choose any other party. But I know their line of thought is that in Azimio la Umoja, one, they have maybe the advantage of maybe being given a single candidate to contest against the Kenya Kwanza coalition. And number two, we truly know, and they actually also know where the next government is headed. And that is why even the key figures around William Ruto are not taking chances. Otherwise, why would people who are very, very close to the deputy president go for governor seat, senator seat, and others seek re-election as MPs when they know very well this guy is going to win the presidency? I wouldn't have seen Rigathi Gachagua going back to maybe run for MP Madira if he knew that William Ruto would win the presidency and even make him the finance minister. I wouldn't have seen Alice Wahome going for the Kandara parliamentary seat, knowing that William Ruto actually is going to win outrightly this presidency. So to me, I know they understand where the government is headed, and therefore they might not even want to risk the chances of them being re-elected by allowing these intruders who have come into their coalition to actually limit their chances of being elected by merging together with their coalition. Okay. So that is the kind of fear that we have in Western Kenya. So sooner or later, Miriam, I believe you're going to see more defections happening, and especially from UDA to the Jubilee Party or DAP Kenya, because I know as long as this open window is actually kept, this transfer window is actually kept open, you must wait until the last day. Then you will know, you will see the wonders that will happen in the political realms, because these people are actually scared. They don't know whether this guy is going to win. And also it is also in terms of finances, you've heard the president say that he's going to support every popular candidate that is going to be running on the Jubilee ticket. And therefore they check both sides, and knowing that the first strategy of winning an election, an electoral campaign is money, then they're actually also juggling also between that. Because right now, the grapevine has it that the deputy president is actually has actually exhausted his coffers in terms of bankrolling the campaign. So that is what is at play, Miriam.
Okay. So there's, of course, you've given some suggestions on where maybe some of these politicians might decide to decamp, as should this story be true, that Didmus Barasa is tipped to lead a host of aspirants in an exodus that could cost the DP the support he has enjoyed. I don't know where they will be going to. Maybe you just wait and see. And also, according to Mr. Barasa, that is Didmus Barasa, zoning encourages laziness in a party while killing political careers of many. Zoning is being pushed by lazy leaders. If a party has developed a team of strong aspirants, they will definitely win. I would rather go independent than succumb to zoning. And of course, a person like Didmus Barasa has been with Deputy President William Ruto from the very first time, days that the UDA was formed. And I think he was hopeful that he will vie through UDA in his constituency. But because of the zoning, this might deny him the opportunity. And so he's saying this is an idea being pushed by lazy leaders. I mean, what is he telling us about Musalia and Wetangula?
Yes, exactly, Miriam. And that is a feeling across, even in Mount Kenya, people just coming up with parties and requesting that they be given space simply because they come from a certain region, so they're given the freeway to actually fill their own candidates. And you remember, this is the kind of entitlement that actually wrecked NASA, because you realize that these guys were bringing so little on the table, but yet demanding so lofty the benefit that come with the coalition, even in terms of funds. How could you demand to get equal share of funds in a coalition where you brought in less than a quarter of whatever earned the coalition the money? So to me, I think there's no fairness in such a formation, and that is why even NASA collapsed. And if they're not very careful, even Kenya Kwanza is going to collapse, going by the talk from the Kakamega Senator Cleophas Malala. And that is why you saw the likes of Benjamin Washiali yesterday coming out guns blazing and warning Cleophas Malala of sabotage. Because, the demands are quite too high than whatever they're bringing on the table. And therefore, these will automatically bring disgruntlement in the UDA side of the Kenya Kwanza, and that might actually be the beginning of the end of this particular coalition, Miriam.
All right, thank you so much. And just going back, okay, that was a reference of a story from yesterday's Sunday Nation, so let's just leave that alone. But going back to the story that we're looking at earlier, because I was just going through some of the figures here from the last elections we had on the Standard newspaper, saying Turkana County, Uhuru Kenyatta then garnered about 58,000. 744 votes, and Raila Odinga garnered 71,063. In West Pokot, President Kenyatta led with 97,620 and Raila 52,120. So they just are giving us a breakdown on how in some of these counties in Rift Valley what President Uhuru Kenyatta got then and what opposition leader Raila Odinga got then. And so perhaps some of these votes that President Uhuru Kenyatta got, maybe the same people now could be could vote for Raila Odinga, who knows. But what can Azimio do to tap into some of these votes and some of these areas in Rift Valley that perhaps they've not been campaigning on very much? What can they do in good time?
Miriam, there's no any other magic that you can use to win an election other than coming up with an agenda that really resonates with the kind of the electorate that you're going to campaign in. And therefore, what the Azimio team can actually do is actually getting to the ground and being able to campaign in these regions, being able to sell the agenda. And you can see Raila Odinga got 50-something thousand votes in West Pokot. President Uhuru Kenyatta led with 97,000 votes. So which means the margin was around 20%, you know. And owing to the fact that now President Uhuru Kenyatta has flipped over to Raila Odinga's side, it is more likely that now Raila Odinga will get the 97% that President Uhuru Kenyatta got in 2017, and William Ruto will inherit Raila's 50-something thousand votes. And that is why I see a lot of an eye-opener and potential in this particular region that has not been yet explored by the Azimio La Umoja Brigade. And I hope in the coming weeks before August, we're going to see an intensified campaign in Rift Valley, even more than we see it in central Kenya and other parts of this country. Because that tells you that these votes are actually quintessential, are going to be a determinant. Because if they can be able to deny William Ruto of his backyard and let him gambling between Mount Kenya, then that will have, you know, they will have won the race in the first round, because Mount Kenya is not quite maybe solidly behind William Ruto. And you might never know about the people of Mount Kenya and how they vote. And, you know, we have been observing them. Even during the time of Tharaka Nithi, you saw how they voted. Raila Odinga could go in Meru, could go in Tharaka Nithi and Embu. And you will think that Raila Odinga is going to get more than 200,000 votes from that particular part of Mount Kenya East. But when it comes to casting their ballots, they actually go by the silent majority. Whatever is on the ground, whatever they know about a specific candidate is what they're going to follow to cast the ballot.
Okay.
So William Ruto might just be, for now, carried away by the crowd, not knowing that these are the same people who will thunderously welcome the ODM leader in Mount Kenya, but at the end of the day, not vote with ODM. So to me, I think, Miriam, this is an unexplored vote basket. And all the Azimio La Umoja team has to do is to go there and sell the agenda. I believe they have a very beautiful manifesto, a manifesto that will resonate with every Tom, Dick, and Harry in those particular areas, regardless of their political, religious, or social inclinations. But once they are able to sell their message and say, this is what we are planning to do for you, I believe they'll be acceptable. They'll get a very sizable number from that particular region, if not the majority, Miriam.
Okay. All right. And another story that ties to what we are talking about, that is another story up there on the Daily Nation before we come to the main story on the Daily Nation, that is Crowds for Hire, an investigative piece by the Daily Nation and NTV. Of course, reveals the shocking details of the normalization of hirelings on the campaign trail, but that is a story we shall look at later. But sibling rivalry, that is what I want us to look at just in what we are talking about on page 4. And Azimio La Umoja flag bearer Raila Odinga and Kenya Kwanza Alliance leader William Ruto have to contain the sibling rivalry in their teams or risk jeopardizing their campaigns. The entry of Moses Kuria's Chama cha Kazi and Mwangi Kiunjuri's the Service Party into Kenya Kwanza and One Kenya Alliance in Azimio could complicate the interest of the hardliners in both camps. In Laikipia East constituency, for instance, trouble is brewing in Kenya Kwanza as Mr. Kiunjuri, now coalition co-principal, will face off with United Democratic Alliance UDA party's Kate Waruguru. I'll be running for the Laikipia East parliamentary seat. If I have to be part of the next government, I want to walk there with dignity and respect so that nobody gives me the position of a cabinet secretary, then demeans me the following day, said Mr. Kiunjuri. So he's still recovering from that. He was sacked. Now in Machakos, the biggest fight is between former State House Chief of Staff Nzioka Waita of Chama cha Uzalendo and former Transport Chief Administrative Secretary Wavinya Ndeti, both whom are in Azimio, and they continue giving these examples and how this internal rivalry, as others you've seen play out, might jeopardize chances of these coalitions winning some of these seats. Is there a perfect way of dealing with this rivalry? Because now it's just brewing, but wait until the primaries come on. Is there any way that Kenya Kwanza and Azimio la Umoja can handle this matter in a way that it will not spill over and cost the coalitions?
Miriam, I do not, I might not hold a brief for Kenya Kwanza, but whatever I heard from very credible sources in the Azimio Secretariat is that they're going to base their maybe nominations on the opinion polls. And of course, they've already gotten pollsters in place who are going to conduct opinion polls to get the popular candidate run for the top seat. And maybe in a position, in a place where they can have the second coming maybe contestant run as deputy governor, it will be sorted in a particular manner. So in Azimio, they're going to be using consensus, which I believe is okay, because at the end of the day, the vote turnout will be great because there's no person who will boycott an election simply because their candidate was shortchanged and all that. And we confidently believe it is forming the next government, and therefore there is so much confidence that even if I'm not maybe elected as governor, I can get a CS or a CAS or a PS or any department head in government or an ambassadorial position in government. But for Kenya Kwanza, I really don't know how it's going to play out. Remember, in the first instance, even the Kenya Kwanza maybe coalition leader, William Ruto, did not want to form a coalition with any small parties. And it is only President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga who forced him into forming coalition with the smaller parties, because they are actually welcoming each all and sundry onto their side. And William Ruto saw that as a disadvantage. He was going to miss out. Remember, Azimio has over 21 parties in their coalition, whereas Kenya Kwanza only has maybe like 5 or 4 parties which are actually supporting the bid. So it is a decision by William Ruto which was meant out of convenience and not actual goodwill. So to me, I think it actually, I don't see a scenario where the UDA candidate beating Rift Valley or Central Kenya, where Moses Kuri and Mwangi Kiunjuri comes from, will actually cede ground for the TSP or maybe Chama Chakazi candidates. So it's going to be chaotic, Miriam. I don't know how they're going to maybe do that, because they haven't talked about holding opinion polls like the Azimio side has actually done.
Okay. I don't know if the opinion poll will be the ultimate, decider on this, because maybe the losing side will start asking questions like how credible is this opinion poll that you're basing your decision on? But let's wait and see how that will work out. For Azimio la Umoja, as we wait to hear how Kenya Kwanza, will be going about choosing their candidate through their respective parties. Now, just another story besides that, on page 5 on the Daily Nation. I will protect Kenyatta family interest, says Ruto. Deputy President William Ruto yesterday regretted that President Uhuru Kenyatta had wrongly judged him as someone who would not protect his interest after retirement. I don't think that is what President Kenyatta has been saying, but let's read on. Addressing Kenya Kwanza Alliance supporters in Murang'a County yesterday, DP Ruto said he would not betray the friendship he has cultivated with President Kenyatta for more than 2 decades. We've been... From President Uhuru Kenyatta's point of view, perhaps his deputy has been working to sabotage, his legacy. And it's interesting that, the DP would say that I will protect President Kenyatta's family interests. I think President Kenyatta has not been so much concerned about his family interests, but rather his legacy, which he's been feeling, his deputy has been working over time to sabotage. But also listening to what the DP is saying now, is this a man that perhaps is a bit desperate? Because the last we checked, aliachia Mungu, but now I think the reality is sinking in. And since President Uhuru Kenyatta came out openly and endorsed Raila Odinga during the last event that we saw, things seems to have shifted. And now the reality perhaps is something that maybe he's finding it difficult to deal with. What do you think is going on here with the DP?
I think, Miriam, this statement is ironical. And it has been made in all ill intention, just to show that the Kenyatta family perhaps is an unscrupulous family, which is whose bigger interest is not actually to work for the people of Kenya, but rather secure its interest in terms of acquiring wealth and the resources that maybe they perceive they possess. Now, my question to William Ruto will be, in 2002 when Uhuru Kenyatta was in opposition, who was protecting the Kenyatta family wealth? When Mwai Kibaki has been present for the last 10 years, who was protecting the Kenyatta family interest. So to me, I think this statement is neither here or there. It is just the sabo attacks that he has been for over time been hurling over the first family, and we shouldn't take it as maybe literally as he has said it. It has a much deeper meaning, and therefore I don't take it quite well when he talks about such things. And maybe he will tell. It would be frank if he tells Kenyans, perhaps who on his side now protects his wealth. So to me, Miriam, I think it was a bad calculated maybe statement to say aimed at maybe tainting the image of the Kenyatta family in particular.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, anyway, I think the reality is sinking in there, and he's not too pleased about it. Another story, it's Monday. So, there was a lot of political activities over the weekend. So, it's politics today, okay? All right. So on page 6, still has to do with the deputy president. Ruto allies reveal why he won't step down as deputy president. Deputy President William Ruto won't be stepping down anytime soon, despite numerous calls to do so from President Kenyatta and Azimio la Umoja flag bearer Raila Odinga. Sources at his presidential campaign secretariat say the DP fears losing access to intelligence reports and state parks that keep him as the second in command, even though he remains a stranger in his own government. The DP claims resignation is an act of cowardice and betrayal to the millions of Kenyans who voted for him. His is a constitutional office whose term expires when a new holder is elected, said Dr. Ruto's Director of Communication, Emmanuel Talam. The DP gets access to information on the ratings of his opponents, their plans and their campaign schedules. He also sits in the 9-member National Security Council. Now, the Constitution mandates the Council to exercise supervisory control over national security organs. It has the mandate to oversee and appraise the objectives, commitments, and risk of Kenya regarding actual and potential national security capabilities. These are the privileges that Dr. Ruto's ally are saying they cannot let go of. But as far as we know, or maybe we don't have the inside information, the meetings on this National Security Council, I don't know if DP has been attending them, because if he has been, and then some of these comments he's been making in public in regards to the security in the country and how the government is handling security in the country, he will not be making it. So our assumption has been that perhaps he's not been attending these meetings. Are we wrong?
Miriam, we are dealing with a politician who is not quite true to himself. William Ruto does not speak the truth at any particular given point. And if he has to speak, he has been speaking it from the both corners of his mouth. And therefore, all we know is that he has 50% of government. He receives some of this intelligence, and he can always talk about a matter in a way that actually benefits perhaps his own interests. But he doesn't maybe talk about things that will actually change his image. And therefore, Miriam, I believe in my deepest conviction that the only reason why the deputy president is actually sticking to the leadership of this country as a deputy president is not a matter of principle that those who resign are cowards. In fact, across the world, those who resign from governments or maybe offices that they feel that contradicts their principle are actually deemed to be strong personalities. So to me, his talking of saying that it's an act of cowardice, it actually translates to his selfishness, because he believes once he leaves office, he'll not be able to get an entitlement over the perks that come actually with the office that he holds. So therefore, to me, that is what I believe. And in matters truth, I think William Ruto doesn't speak truth at any given time. And the only way you can be able to know about the truth is maybe listening to the side of the president, which has actually maintained that William Ruto is privy to a number of information, including even when the president was going to meet his handshake partner, Raila Odinga, in March of 2018, William Ruto was privy to this information. So, Miriam, I don't think we can ever bank on William Ruto to tell us the truth of the matter as it is in government. But otherwise, let him continue enjoying the perks as they come. But come 10th of August this year, at least he will not be in that office, he will not be earning a salary for a job not done, and he will not be insulting the president of this particular republic, President Uhuru Kenyatta, because we will have a new president in office, and it will not be William Samoei Ruto. I submit.
Okay, very well. Thank you so much. So, of course, he's saying, well, okay, of course, one of the key reasons there, according to this story, is the privileges he gets in terms of, the financial, of course, his salary and others, financial privileges that he gets as being the deputy president. And, we saw that in the recent visit he took abroad, where the taxpayer, footed the bill there, but he still went and complained how the government is and he's part of that government. That is what this story is trying to say, because at the end of the day he gets to receive these reports, he gets to still enjoy his salary, he still gets to enjoy state protections. I think this is too much to lose, but at the cost of what? As before we leave this story, there you've rightfully said, Daniel Wesonga, perhaps in history, not just in Kenya, but even around the world, leaders who seem to have integrity and character, when something is not working right and you're not agreeing with the policies and the things the government is doing, the next best thing to do as a standard practice will be to resign. But insisting to stick there, of course, in getting these privileges, all at the expense of what? Your character, should be a matter of principle, or that does not apply here?
Exactly, Miriam. And of course, it is a matter of principle. And there's no need for the deputy president to be contradicting the same government he serves in, insulting his boss and saying that he's incapable of doing the duties of a deputy president, whereas he earns the salary from the taxes taken from the hardworking Kenyan citizenry. And it really beats logic. If you say you are working hard to maybe elevate hustlers, and yet you are comfortable earning a salary coming from the same hustlers without even working and having shame for whatever money that you take and the perks that you receive from your office. So to me, I think, Miriam, I agree with you strongly that the deputy president should do better, and he should be truthful to whatever he talks about, because it's not a matter of being maybe a coward or something or sort. It's all out of principle, and principle applies across the globe. We've seen very, very many leaders taking bold steps in regards to resigning whenever they are in a formation that does not really agree with their ideals in principle. And therefore, that is all we would have expected the Honorable Deputy President to do. So his talk about maybe fear or maybe being a coward or something does not even make sense to me, Miriam, in as much as his office is concerned.
Okay. All right. Or as Melania Trump would say, be best. Okay? Be best. Do the right thing. I don't know. All right. Another story on page 8 on the Daily Nation. Our time is almost up, but let's look at this and then maybe one more story. MPs reject IEBC voter transfer proposals. MPs have opposed a proposal that seeks to impose restrictions on voters who would wish to change their polling stations. The National Assembly's Justice and Legal Affairs Committee has said the proposals in the Elections Amendment Bill 2022 are unconstitutional and unviable. The bill states that those seeking to transfer their vote will be required to prove that they are employed. What is that? Own a business? What? To vote in Kenya or to transfer as a voter, possess land or a residential building for at least 6 months in the constituency they intend to move to. Ruaraka Member of Parliament TJ Kajwang said while the intention of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission IEBC is good for taming mass voter movement, the proposed method is unconstitutional as it limits the rights of citizens. It is IEBC that made this proposal. Like, surely, what do you make of this before I give my opinion?
Miriam, I don't think it is actually viable to do so. So I think with time, maybe those stakeholders who are concerned about how we vote and how we exercise our rights to do so will actually go to court and quash such outrageous and maybe unattainable prerequisite requirements. Because I understand we have so many Kenyans who would have wanted to shift their vote maybe from the village to the city, or maybe from the city to up country. But nonetheless, most of them maybe do not even own a piece of land, or maybe are not residents, permanent residents of that particular area. So I think, to me, it is quite unattainable, and therefore we should be able to maybe reconsider that and be able to allow Kenyans to freely maybe shift and go vote where they feel they are comfortable to. At the end of the day, these votes will be counted, and whoever wins will actually benefit from it. And of course, Kenyans have to understand also that whoever you must only vote for a person who will be able to benefit in terms of the resource allocation and all that. So any Kenyan who goes to vote for a person who is not under their jurisdiction, then they have themselves to blame. But also the IEBC, what IEBC ought to do is not to limit people from shifting to their polling stations, but rather educate them on how best they can actually be able to understand the significance of their vote, Miriam.
Okay. All right. And this is what, Kajuang asked. Why would you want Kenyans to show that they are employed for them to be able to vote where they want to vote from? Why would you ask Kenyans to show that they own property? Like what? Are you really speaking to Kenyans or people living in Karen? You need to withdraw this amendment. I don't know who was drafting this amendment for IEBC, but surely it seems to be out of tune with the reality of the ground, because as we well know right now with COVID-19, a lot of people lost their jobs. So if I was living in Nairobi, there's a possibility, there's many cases where people have migrated back, say, to the villages or other smaller towns where maybe they found other jobs. Can they register there as voters? Transfer there as voters?
Miriam, I believe that this suggestion is a bit unrealistic, and owing to the fact that even a majority of voters, perhaps let's say in some areas around here in Nairobi, are casual laborers. How will such people even prove that they actually are employed? How will people who work in business, who are self-employed, prove that they're employed without having maybe, because I understand for you to be able to prove that you're employed, you might maybe be requested upon your application to provide a letter from the employer. So I think it's foolhardy to just imagine that these will actually sail through and without having an equal implication on the vote apathy in the country. So these are very unthinkable laws that are being brought by IEBC. Rather than maybe bringing legislation that will suppress voters from coming to elect their leaders, they will rather focus more on sensitization and coming up with strict laws that will ensure that only people who are qualified to run for political seats actually get to be their names on the ballot. But IBC is not doing any of that. It seems that IBC is only concerned about maybe laws that actually are direct opposite of what they should be encouraging, Miriam. I submit.
Okay, thank you so much. So let's look at the main headline on the Daily Nation as we prepare to wind up. The main headline there, crowds for hire. A Daily Nation and NTV investigation reveals shocking details of the normalization of hirelings on the campaign trail and how politicians will do anything to create false impressions of popularity, including using photo and video editing software to distort rally numbers. The story is on page 12 and 13. Let's just dig a bit into that and find out what is really going on. But I know this is not news. Politicians are hiring crowds to attend their rallies in a brazen rat race to project popularity. A Daily Nation and NTV investigation has revealed, raising questions about the myriad of reputational falsehood paged on the campaign trail and the normalization of voter bribery. The scheme is carried out by a well-organized underground network of political mobilizers and is oiled using billions of shillings from questionable sources. The rank and file of party structure, the investigation found out, is aware of the mobilization drives, and the road extends across political divides. Interviews with those hired to attend rallies gave the impression of an electorate that has sold its soul to the political class. The politicians, on the other hand, explain that the optics have to be right during rallies, and therefore they must do everything to project the image of popularity, even if it is fake. Your comments? Okay, we seem to have lost Daniel Wesonga there. I would have so much wanted to hear his opinion on this story, because this is not something new in the country. There has been allegations, there has been chaos during, the campaigns, and some of which, according to even some intelligence reports from the police, has been caused by what they call the mobilization fee that maybe was given to one team and the other team was not given, or the money was given and the chief mobilizers decided not to distribute it to the people who are supposed to be bought to come and be part of these rallies. But it is the ugliness, that we see play out in our Kenyan politics. So it's interesting, because at the end of the day, you'll go there and maybe you'll be paid some money, you'll be bribed, which is against the law, and you'll go on and vote to somebody that you don't even know their policies, you don't know their agenda, and then you sit back. So once roads are not being made in your village, and hospitals are not being built, and things are not done, you start complaining. You don't understand that you have the power to put in place the person that you think can do work for you. But if you don't do it the right way, and you're bribed, and your vote, which is your voice, which is how you make decisions in terms of governance, in terms of who you want to lead you, when you fail to use it, wisely, then now you suffer. And then, as we know that famous saying, we get the leaders we deserve. Exactly, because that is unfortunately what happens. And so the NTV, of course, investigated on this story. And if you want to read through it, it's on page 12 and 13. It's a whole investigative piece that I might not be able to look at it in detail this morning. And so it's interesting, but it's not news. I think we've seen how that has played out even in public sometimes. That has brought a lot of chaos. So there are some editorial cartoons that we do have. I think we can start with that on the Daily Nation. We see an editorial cartoon there, I think by an artist called Eager. And we do have a party hopper in the middle, and then we have a UD on one side and Raila Odinga on the other side, because the window is closing down for the people who would want to hop from one party to the next. And that's why you see a lot of jitters in some areas where people feel as though they will not get the ticket they're looking for. So they're starting to make, moves to see they can move quickly before this window closes. So that is the dilemma that a lot of politicians will find themselves in, the party hoppers. So usually after the primaries of one party, if they're not able to get the ticket, they quickly move on to the next party, and so that is the dilemma a lot of our politicians will find themselves in, as we wait for the party primaries, which, by the way, ODM has postponed, its primaries are supposed to happen soon, but they have postponed, so I don't know until when. All right, thank you so much. I think we're gonna end here for right now. We'll be back with another show a bit later. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Good Morning Africa, and we've covered a lot of ground this morning, a lot of, of course, politics here in the country. And when we come later, we shall look at other news from across the continent and other topics. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Miriam Ogutu. Thank you, Daniel Wesonga, who suffered a bit of a technical hitch, so he just left us a few moments ago. But it was a pleasure to have you this morning on the show. My name is Miriam Ogutu. Good morning.